In 1898, the UK banned gambling in libraries. Public libraries in the UK are sadly an increasingly rare thing today. Public libraries began appearing in the mid-19th century as a government initiative to improve education. Alas, this noble intention was lost on some people. Many people decided to use public libraries as free places to hang out and behave raucously. Things got so bad Parliament passed the Libraries Offences Act in 1898. This made swearing, abusive language and, incredibly, gambling in a library illegal. The gambling aspect remained in force until 2005. Persistently staying after closing hours is still a no-no, to the irritation of British bookworms.
Did you know that public libraries in the UK were once the hotbed of raucous behavior, including gambling? Quite the contrast to their serene image today. In the mid-19th century, the British government embarked on an ambitious plan. They sought to enlighten the masses and bolster the nation's literacy rate, and their tool of choice was the public library. The idea was simple, yet groundbreaking. By providing free access to books and knowledge, they hoped to cultivate a more educated, informed society. It was a testament to the power of public initiatives, a monument to the democratic sharing of information. These libraries, these cathedrals of knowledge, sprung up across the country, a beacon for the curious and the ambitious, the dreamers and the doers. They were open to all, regardless of social class or economic status. The rich could rub elbows with the poor, the scholar could share wisdom with the novice, all within the hallowed halls of the public library. As these libraries began to spring up, they quickly became popular public spaces. But not everyone was there for the books. In the late 19th century, public libraries were seen as the perfect free spaces to hang out, socialize, and even conduct some questionable activities. The hallowed halls of these libraries, initially intended to fuel the minds of the masses with knowledge, started to witness a different kind of crowd. The quiet whispering of pages turning was often drowned out by loud chatter, boisterous laughter, and even the occasional heated argument. Among the most surprising of these disruptions was gambling. Yes, you heard it right, gambling in libraries. The tranquility of these sacred spaces was frequently shattered by the clatter of dice, the flip of cards, and the excited exclamations of winners. Libraries became hotspots for card sharks and dice throwers. There were even instances of high-stakes games being held in the quiet corners of these libraries. The library goers who came seeking a peaceful environment to read and learn were often distracted and disturbed by these activities. The misuse of these public spaces was not just limited to gambling. Some folks saw these libraries as a free shelter, overstaying their welcome, and turning these places of learning into makeshift accommodations. The librarians, the guardians of these spaces, were often at their wits' end, trying to manage the chaos. The ruckus was not just disrupting the peaceful environment, but was also damaging the valuable resources these libraries housed. The growing concerns about the misuse of libraries reached a tipping point. The government and the public were alarmed by the blatant disrespect shown to these sanctuaries of learning. The libraries, once seen as the pillars of education and enlightenment, were now plagued with unruly behavior. Parliament had to step in to curb the unruly behavior in these supposed sanctuaries of learning. The result was the Libraries Offences Act of 1898, an act that would change the course of public libraries in the UK forever. In 1898, Parliament took a drastic step to restore order in the public libraries, the Libraries Offences Act. This was a time when the sanctity of libraries was under threat. The hallowed halls of knowledge had become a playground for the unruly, the disrespectful, and the irreverent. The government, in an attempt to salvage the institution's dignity, passed the Libraries Offences Act. The act was not a simple cautionary document. It was a clear-cut law that made certain behaviors in libraries illegal. The act targeted three main offenses: swearing, using abusive language, and quite intriguingly, gambling. Yes, you heard it right, gambling. The public libraries of the late 19th century were not only a place of learning and enlightenment, but also a hub for clandestine card games and covert coin tosses. Swearing and using abusive language in a library might seem like petty offenses today, but back in 1898 they were taken very seriously. The act aimed to maintain a respectful and peaceful environment in the libraries where people could read and study without any disruption. The law was clear. Anyone found guilty of these offenses could face stringent penalties. But it was the prohibition of gambling that really stood out in this act. To understand why, we need to delve a little deeper into the socio-economic context of the time. The late 19th century was a period of economic hardship for many in the UK. Unemployment was high and wages were low. For some, gambling in the library was not just a pastime, it was a desperate attempt to improve their lot. The Act made it clear that libraries were not places for such activities. They were spaces for learning and intellectual growth, not for betting and gaming. The penalties for gambling in libraries were quite severe, often involving hefty fines or even imprisonment. This was a clear message from the government: respect the sanctity of the library or face the consequences. The Libraries Offences Act of 1898 was more than just a set of rules and regulations. It was a testament to the importance of libraries in society. It was a declaration that libraries were sacred places of learning that deserved respect and reverence. The act played a crucial role in restoring the dignity and tranquility of libraries, transforming them back into the peaceful sanctuaries of knowledge they were meant to be. The act put an end to the chaotic scenes in libraries, but one particular rule would linger for over a century. The prohibition of gambling in libraries, a rule that might seem quite strange to us today, remained in force until the early 21st century. But that's a tale for another time. For now, let's revel in the knowledge that the Libraries Offences Act of 1898 played a pivotal role in preserving the sanctity and serenity of libraries, ensuring they remain the revered institutions of learning we know and love today. While most of the Act's regulations were reasonable, one stood out for its peculiarity: the ban on gambling in libraries. This rule, strange as it may sound, remained in force for a staggering 107 years, until its repeal in the year 2005. The ban on gambling was a reflection of the times, a measure taken to preserve the sanctity of these hallowed halls of learning. It was a safeguard against the debauchery that had plagued public libraries and turned them into dens of vice, rather than temples of knowledge. However, as societal norms shifted and the image of libraries evolved, this rule became more and more anachronistic. The repeal of the gambling rule came about largely due to changes in society's perception of libraries and gambling. As the 21st century dawned, libraries were no longer seen as public hangouts but as important community centers for learning and cultural exchange. Simultaneously, gambling was increasingly viewed as a personal choice rather than a societal ill, leading to a relaxation of laws around it. However, despite this progression, one aspect of the Libraries Offences Act still remains in force today, and that is the rule against staying in the library after closing hours. This regulation, while perhaps not as peculiar as the ban on gambling, is a testament to the enduring importance of maintaining order and respect for public spaces. The repeal of the gambling rule was not just a legal change, but a symbolic one. It marked the end of an era where libraries were misused as free public hangouts and the start of a new chapter, where they are respected as places of learning and cultural exchange. And so, after 107 years, the libraries finally shed their image as dens of vice. It took over a century, but the libraries finally shed their image as dens of vice. The Libraries Offences Act played a crucial role in shaping the image of public libraries as we know them today. Born out of an era where public libraries were seen as free spaces for leisurely hangouts and rowdy behavior, the Act sought to restore the sanctity of these institutions. It transformed them from unruly social hubs to havens of knowledge and learning. This law, in particular the prohibition of gambling, remained in effect for over a century, until its repeal in 2005. Even today, the spirit of this act lingers in the quiet, respectful atmosphere that pervades libraries across the United Kingdom. These libraries are not just repositories of books, they're symbols of a societal shift towards respect for education and learning. So, next time you visit a library, remember, it's not just a quiet place to read, it's a monument to a fascinating piece of social history.